Thank you. I will call to order the Tuesday, the 23rd meeting of the Noblesville Common Council at 7 p.m. Rise as you can. Mr. Thurston, will you lead us to the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Ms. Lees, will you do the roll call?
Mr. Boyce? Mr. Davis?
Present.
Mr. Elliott?
Present.
Mr. Johnson?
Present.
Mr. Schwartz?
Present.
Mr. Smith?
Present.
Mr. Thurston?
Present.
Ms. Wiles?
Present.
Mr. Peterson?
Present.
Mr. President, you have a quorum.
Thank you. Can I have approval of the minutes from our January 9th meeting?
Motion to approve?
Second.
A motion and a second. This is a hand vote. All those in favor of approving the minutes, raise your right hand. 8-0. Approval of the agenda.
Mr. President, I would move that we approve the agenda as presented.
Second.
A motion and a second to approve the agenda. There's a hand vote also. Please raise your right hand. 8-0. Petitions by comments, or petitions or comments by citizens who are present. I don't have any cards, but if anybody would like to comment, there are white cards in the back. You can bring those up to the clerk and we'll hear your comments. On to the mayor's comments.
Mr. President, good evening. Council members, great to be with you this evening. I have two items I wanted to run by you just for public awareness. Two are both infrastructure projects, one being State Road 32. This is a project we have been talking about in conjunction with our friends at the Department of Transportation for several months now, probably actually several years. But an email went out earlier today to downtown business owners that I'm going to forward to you all tonight as well, kind of informing them that the Department of Transportation is going to be getting work as early as March of this year on some reconstruction of State Road 32. And this is not the larger project from Westfield into Noblesville, but a downtown portion. The entire project will run from really 6th Street all the way out to 16th Street on Connor. And so it's going to start as early as March of this year. There'll be 3 phases of the project, and each phase will involve a full closure of State Road 32 in downtown Noblesville. I reiterate, there'll be a full closure. And so this is going to be for lack of a better term, a big, hairy project that we're going to work really, really hard with our friends at NDOT on. This is their project, but it is our city. And so we're going to be working very closely in conjunction with our friends at the Chamber of Commerce, with Noblesville Main Street, with you all here at City Hall to make sure that we are notifying the public, notifying our downtown business owners the best we can of this. But I will tell you the first phase will be a full closure and upgrades to the intersection of 16th Street and State Road 32. The second phase will be a full closure from west of 16th Street through 9th Street, including the intersections of 9th and 10th Street and 32. The third phase will be a full closure from west of 9th to 6th Street, including the intersections of 8th, but 9th and 10th Street will be open. And there'll be some maps of that coming out later this year. They will be done at separate times. They will last 30 to 45 days each to complete. And then NDOT has set up a website that should be live, I believe, starting tomorrow, but it is reconstructingsr32.com, reconstructingsr32.com. Again, our goal here, much like this is not an ideal project, but they never are an ideal project, especially when it's a main corridor through our city. But our goal is to work with Main Street, with the Chamber, with Noblesville Creates, with you all to get out as much information and detour routes and maps, and I'm sure we'll be supporting our small businesses through that time as well. So I just want to put it on your radar screen so nobody is too surprised when it happens here starting as early as March. So be on the lookout for that. I will also say the second project I want to highlight, Deputy Mayor Matt Light and I had a chance to travel to Washington, D.C. last week to see our friends in the federal government and really to talk extensively about our State Road 37 project. As you know, this has been not nearly as long discussed as Pleasant Street, but one that has been discussed for a long time. And major upgrades have been made to the southern section of State Road 37 up to 146th Street. We all who were on the council prior to or were part of the conversations know that NDOT and the city, for that matter, viewed the entire project needed to go all the way to State Road 32 and 38. And we have been engaged with NDOT over the past probably 18 months in early conversations as to what that would look like. I can tell you an RFP went live last week from our friends at NDOT to the engineering community. So if you get approached by any of your friends in that world, you'll know why. To start the initial planning of that second phase, which would be 146th Street North through the intersections of Greenfield, Town and Country, Pleasant, and State Road 32, 38. We'll be back in front of you and talking with you through finance committees on financial obligations. This is for probably 2029, 2030 dollars from the state. The state will own that project as well. So not tomorrow, which is great, and not great at the same time. But so we'll be working with you guys on some financial commitments going forward. But both of those projects are becoming much more public facing now. So we want to make sure that you are aware of it, and we'll get more information to you as time moves forward. But is a very exciting and successful a result of many, many months and years of conversation to get NDOT to the table with us, and we really appreciate all that they're doing to partner with us on that. So wanted to bring both those issues to your attention. And with that, happy to take any questions or comments or feedback, but appreciate the time tonight.
Any questions?
Mr. President, I would just make clarification for the mayor that the State Road 32 project is not widening it at all.
No, it's really kind of a restructuring of the road surface itself. I know it's, anytime you do a closure like that, you would love to see some beautiful, and not that our road isn't beautiful, but it really isn't a widening. It's not a touching of historic buildings. It's not, it really probably won't look much different, which will be good news to some people and also frustrating to others after it's been closed. But it really is a resurfacing and what's the word I'm looking for?
Reconstruction.
Thank you, Andrew Rodewald. Reconstruction of State Road 32. But the footprint should remain the same, which is important to our historic downtown.
I just wanted to make sure that everyone was aware of
Yep,
it.
thank
That's
you.
not changing.
Thank you, Mrs. Wiles.
Any other questions? Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you.
Committee reports. Roads Committee met January 12th. That included myself, Todd Thurston, and Mark Boyce joined us electronically. Because Mr. Ayer was not there, we got started 9 minutes too late, and I apologize for that. The street rehabilitation project contract true in Old Town from South Street to 10th Street. Concrete work is ongoing. Paving will take place in the spring. Contract number 3 from Bowden from 146th to Greenfield Avenue. Paving is complete. Pavement marking will be completed in the spring. Hamilton County projects, 146th in Allisonville is underway. Watch for this summer closings and lane shifts and things like that on the Hamilton County website. Greenfield Avenue Bridge project has been pushed a little bit to coincide with the Pleasant Street project. NDOT projects, 38 in Oakmont. That roundabout is in the winterization phase, and construction will resume when the weather breaks. 38 in Logan Street construction is planned for 2025. Added travel lanes on 32, basically, what is that, River Road? No, that's not River Road. Construction is anticipated in 25, 26. The mayor touched on the downtown project. NDOT is working hard on a communications plan. 137 and 146 reduced conflict intersection will take place in 2024. 37 and 191st Street will take place, construction is scheduled for 2024. 38 and Bowden Road roundabout, construction is scheduled to begin April of 2024 with a 45-day closure. No update on that. Pleasant Street Phase 1 is on schedule and on budget. Phase 2, tree clearing that is also under budget. Tree clearing is started and scheduled in January. It's ongoing now. Phase 3 is under budget. We were awarded $5.4 million from the MPO. Little Chicago Trail over Morris is scheduled for road closures and restrictions in 24. Watch for those on our website. There's a lot more here, but it's coming up in 25 and 26. Downtown, four-way flashers are underway, under construction at 9th and Maple and 10th and Hannibal. Where's the third one? Maple, 10th and Clinton. Okay, signals. Okay, and that's it for the roads report. Any questions? None? We'll move on to finance.
Thank you, Mr. President. We met January 18th. Dave Johnson, Megan Wiles, and myself. Ian Zolgowski updated us on the year-end appropriation transfers per RC 1-23. And Jeff Spalding updated us with capital project short-term general obligation bond of 2023, also known as the 2024 one-year bond. That was it. We had a very short meeting, and the claims docket come to the council with a favorable recommendation.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Davis?
Mr. President,
Yes.
I would move that we approve the claims as presented.
Second.
There's a motion and a second to approve the claims. As a hand vote, all those in favor, please raise your right hand. 8-0. On to previously discussed ordinances. Council to consider ordinance 53-1223, an ordinance adopting an amended development plan and special consideration for a school use, amending ordinance 080222, including an updated preliminary development plan for 17.9 acres of the overall 31 acres in the 14600 and 14800 block of Bowden Road, west side. Amy Steffens.
Thank you. There have been no changes to the project itself since the first reading at the January 9th council meeting. However, as Mr. Hughes will explain, a commitment concerning the use of the residual parcel to the east of the proposed school has been signed by the applicant.
Just to give a little additional context on the commitment, and I'm sure Mr. Byers can correct me if he thinks I say this incorrectly, but we've worked with the property owner. Because we're doing a partial rezone here, we thought it was appropriate that the remaining parcel, as Mr. Byers indicated at your last meeting, would have to go through a rezone process as well in the future once a use is identified. And so they have put a commitment on that parcel, that's roughly this area here, so that we'll not have any building permits pulled. Currently, it's zoned single family. They've made a commitment to not pull any building permits or to build single family there, but they will submit that to another rezone process in the future. So we'll be back before you once that new use is identified. And I want to thank them for working with us with that on short time frame. Happy to answer any questions.
Yeah, I want to thank you both for working through that in a quick time frame. That was great. Thank you. I know there were a lot of options out there. I appreciate this. Any questions for staff or Mr. Hughes? Mr. Byers, you came all this way. Would you like to say a few words?
I just asked for your consideration. Got a long
Introduce
meeting
your
and-
name and address, too.
Sure.
sorry.
My name's Gordon Byers, 298 South 10th Street, one of the new flashers that's going to be right where I'm located, and I appreciate that. I'd like to thank the attorney here we had a short time frame to work the commitment out, but I think it kind of reflects what we talked about last time. We put it in writing. It'll become a binding commitment, subject to a zoning change. You'll get a chance to look at it, so will staff and the mayor's office. So I think that addresses maybe some of your concerns. And I'd ask you to approve this, special consideration for the school use, and approve the zoning amendment that was presented. I have really nothing else to say, except we'd ask for your consideration.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Byer?
Mr. President, I would move that we approve the ordinance as amended, or accept the amendments that are being presented. Amend the ordinance as
As
presented. So sorry.
Second.
There's a motion and a second to amend the ordinance as presented. All those in favor, please raise your right hand.
Mr. President, now I would make the motion to approve ordinance number 53-12-23 as amended.
There's a motion and a second. This is a roll call vote.
Mr. Davis.
Aye.
Mr. Elliott.
Aye.
Mr. Johnson.
Aye.
Mr. Schwartz.
Aye.
Mr. Smith.
Aye.
Mr. Thurston.
Aye.
Ms. Wiles.
Aye.
Mr. Peterson.
Aye.
8 ayes, 0 nay. The ordinance is approved.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. On behalf of the students, I think they'd thank you also, thank the mayor, thank the zoning staff and the students and staff, and the members of the Aluda Foundation also, thank you for your consideration. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Council to consider ordinance 010124 and ordinance amending section 3801 of the city's code of ordinance, prepayment of certain expenses. Caitlin Moss.
Caitlin Moss, Deputy Controller. There have been no changes to our ordinance to amend Section 3801. Just a reminder, this is to get us in line with current practices and with the updated state code. If there's any questions at all, I'd be happy to answer.
Thank you. Any questions for Caitlin Moss?
Mr. President, I would move that we approve ordinance number 01-01-24 as presented.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. This is a roll call vote.
Mr. Elliott?
Aye.
Mr. Johnson?
Aye.
Mr. Schwartz?
Aye.
Mr. Smith?
Aye.
Mr. Thurston?
Aye.
Ms. Wiles?
Aye.
Mr. Davis?
Aye.
Mr. Peterson?
Aye.
8 ayes, 0 nay, the ordinance is approved.
Thank you. Council to consider ordinance 020124 and an ordinance amending the traffic schedules in chapters 72 and 78 of the Code of Ordinances.
Motion to introduce.
Second.
Andrew Rodwald.
Good evening. Andrew Rodewald, Project Manager, Department of Engineering. Before you is an annual update to traffic code. The vast majority of this are new intersections and new subdivision streets that were constructed in 2023. So typically we gather all these up as they're built and accepted throughout the year. We send formal acceptance to NDOT of the roadways at the end of December, and then this codifies those intersection controls. Some of these subdivisions now we were previously calling out each subdivision street as they were being built. We've decided it's a simpler method for both code and for enforcement if we put in a more blanket title of all streets within X subdivision. So there's some subdivisions in here that just as we've gone through auditing haven't actually been codified, or officers have attempted to write a ticket on a certain street for something and said, hey, it's not in there. So some of this cleans that up. The new item that is in here that's outside of traffic schedules, 7213, would codify no parking in front of mailboxes. That's currently prohibited by federal law, but not in city code. So our officers are essentially hoping that residents are polite. They'll go and knock on doors and try and get people to stop blocking their neighbors. It's the neighbor blocking mailbox, not somebody blocking their own, that's the issue. So this would allow them to have an enforcement mechanism beyond just knocking on doors and hoping for good neighbors. It would be for any public street, so there are some mailboxes that are not obviously in public right-of-way that would not fall under this. So that would be a 10-foot on either side of a mailbox. Happy to answer any questions about any of these.
Is there a fine associated with that, or?
It would follow our parking enforcement standards, which is $25 for a first offense, $50 for non-payment for that. So that would be the recommendation. Happy to accept any others.
Any other questions? Okay, see you back in 2 weeks.
Do you want to read the first reading?
No.
Nope.
Yeah, just in the legal department, we've requested to hold this until the next meeting.
So,
Thank you.
thank you.
See you in 2 weeks. Council to
Go back
consider.
and-
What? Or just stay there?
I'll just stand right
Council to
here.
consider resolution RC 324, a resolution concerning the acquisition of real estate. Andrew Rodewald.
As discussed in executive session previously this evening, this is for land acquisition for the Federal Hill to Forest Park Trail, running from Federal Hill to Forest Park along from Logan Street roughly along Nixon Street and crossing under the railroad track and into Forest Park. So I would be happy to entertain any questions regarding that. The funds have been budgeted within the engineering department budget this year.
Thank you. Any questions? No questions?
Mr. President,
Yes.
I would move to approve Resolution RC-3-24 as presented.
Second.
There's a motion and a second for Resolution RC 0324. This is a hand vote. All those in favor, please raise your right hand. 8-0.
Thank you.
Thank you. Miscellaneous number 2, council to receive summary of fiscally neutral year-end appropriations pursuant to Resolution RC 0123. Jeff Spalding.
All right, Mr. President, members of the council, Jeff Spalding, CFO and Controller. And as mentioned, this item was discussed in Finance Committee. There's no action by the council. It's just receipt of the report. And I'm happy to elaborate on that more if you would like, to kind of explain the rationale behind it, or if you just want to receive the report. I'm good with that, too.
I think this is the first time we've seen this. When we do this quarterly, can you just go kind of the general framework of how this works?
Sure. Very, very basically, the item that you have before you is something that is included in a resolution that we bring before the council every year. We just did it for 2024. This is the kind of final item for 2023. And it's a resolution that takes certain tasks that are pretty technical in nature and gives the controller the authority to just go ahead and execute them without actually bringing a formal council action, because as described here, they're fiscally neutral. And in the case of this item, there is occasionally, and usually pretty typically for an organization our size, at year end, when we're finally closing the books, there may be a few items in there where there are budget, shortfalls and overages that in a private company, that would just be on your budget variance report. But because this is a government entity and the budgets kind of have legal standing, you have to close those things at the end. That's summarized in the report, what they are. They don't change the overall budget. They don't change overall spending. And if somebody wants to ask me more questions offline about what those transfers were about and why we did them, I'm happy to answer that. But that's the basic rationale.
Any questions? No questions. There's no action here, so thank you, Mr. Spalding. Council comments. Any comments? Nobody? Okay, well, with that, we're adjourned.